Christ my Lord, the giver of light and wisdom, who opened the eyes of the blind man and transformed the fishermen into wise heralds and teachers of the gospel through the coming of the Holy Spirit, shine also in my mind the light of the grace of the Holy Spirit. Grant me discernment, understanding, and wisdom in learning. Enable me to complete my assignments and to abound in every good work, for to you I give honor and glory. Amen. Most blessed Lord, send the grace of your Holy Spirit on me to strengthen me, that I may learn well the subject I am about to study, and by it become a better person for your glory, the comfort of my family, and the benefit of your church and our nation. Amen. Lovely, lovely. Today we are telling the very sad rest of the story of this horrible war that we find all the Greek cities in. And Bryn, you asked me, about what we're going to read. Before you leave after class, stop, and I will look and tell you the titles, so that because you don't have to worry about the page numbers. Okay, I'll make sure you have that. I also have. Let me just get these out of my way. For Juliana and Clara, we talked about the plagues. I had a sheet that in the plagues in Egypt and how they matched up to various Egyptian gods. Yes, ma'am?
I just learned that kind of thing back in my youth group last
That's
week.
very cool. I don't know if this happens to you like it happened to Emma. Sometimes when you learn something, you seem to learn it or hear it quickly somewhere else. Yeah. Things come in clusters, and I don't know if God does that. I mean, God does everything, but do you know what I mean? Or if it just, you notice it. Do you learn something somewhere, and then suddenly you notice it, and it seems to be everywhere. That's very cool that it lined up like that.
The book of Exodus for our sermons at youth group.
This is a perfect time for you to be studying Exodus.
Thank you,
Excellent,
Jesus.
excellent. So, when we left off last week, Sparta and Athens were at war. And it was a battle of the Spartans coming and burning and pillaging, and then going home, and then the Athenians getting on their ships and coming to where the Spartans live and pillaging and going home, over and over and over. And they kept widening the circle. Let's do the close-up Greece map. They started here, going back and forth, but then eventually they're fighting all the way around the rim of the Aegean Sea. The islands are involved. They're fighting over here. Remember, this island of Corcyra was where Corinth got angry with Athens. But about this time, there was a young man in Athens, and his name was Alcibiades. Alcibiades is super duper famous in history, in Greek history. He was young, handsome, rich, and a partier. All right? Like nice parties, spends lots of money, lots of drinking, lots of craziness. This was Alcibiades. And we know a lot about Alcibiades. Biographers have talked about him. And but here's some things that Dorothy Mills tells us about this amusing young man. Dorothy Mills says everybody loved him, and they all wanted to be like Alcibiades. He's like like an influencer. He's like an internet influencer, except no internet. He just walked through Athens and influenced people. Yes. He was of noble birth, rich, very good looking, and had great personal charm. He lisped when he spoke, kind of like his S's whistled a little bit. Because it was said that this was because it became him well and gave a grace and persuasiveness to his rapid speech. When he began to study, he obeyed all his other masters fairly well. By masters, it means teachers. But he refused to learn to play the flute. because he said it disfigured his face. You make funny faces. I'm not doing that. And he said, and also because it was not possible to speak or sing while playing it. Alcibiades was a leader of fashion amongst the Athenian youths. And as soon as it became known that he despised the flute, playing it went out of fashion and was generally neglected. He set the fashion. He had a friend that we're going to read about next time named Socrates. Socrates was a very, very well-known philosopher. Socrates just had a liking for Alcibiades. He saw something good in Alcibiades. Once they had been fighting together, Socrates and Alcibiades, in a battle in the Peloponnesian War, and Socrates saved Alcibiades' life. They were staying in the same army tent together, and they were out in the front lines together. And so he would try to talk to Alcibiades and get him to pursue, I don't know, taking care of his soul, becoming a good person. But it's really hard when everybody loves you and they want to have big parties all the time and they revere you to really say, I'm going to step away and think about my soul. And Alcibiades didn't really. Well, Alcibiades, after Pericles died, of the plague, and people who weren't as good as Pericles took over. Alcibiades was one of these people, and he decided he knew the next step in this war. And this is the first question I asked you. What expedition did Alcibiades urge the Athenians to undertake? Where does he want them to go?
Sicily?
Sicily.
Oh, whatever, not.
I'm telling you guys, Sicily is the place. So, where is Sicily? Sicily is the island that the boot of Italy is kicking. It's the football of Italy.
Okay.
Sicily, except it looks a bit like the pizza of Italy. It's kind of triangular. Sicily was full of Greeks. Remember, they had sent colonies out all over. And not only were there colonies over here and all around here, there were colonies on Sicily, there were colonies on the heel of Italy and in the toe of Italy. And there was a big, big city in Sicily called Syracuse. Syracuse was very rich and very bossy. And some of the other Greek cities in Sicily said, we don't think much of Syracuse telling us what to do. Hey, why don't we ask Athens if they want to come, help out? And they did. They went over there and sent some people and tried to help and came home. But Alcibiades was just, we need to go back to Sicily. Guys, Sicily is the place. Look, he said, here's Sicily, here's Carthage, one of the major cities of the world at that point. We could take over. We'll take over all of this, and then we'll take over this, and then we'll move our way down and we'll start taking over North Africa. It'll be amazing. And so he said, let's send an army to Syracuse, to Sicily. Now, Alcibiades wasn't the only guy in charge. There was this older man named Nicias. Nicias said, well, first of all, Nicias thought Alcibiades was a young upstart and full of baloney. And Nicias was also really cautious. He didn't just go off rashly and do things. And he said, look, if you want to go to Sicily, do you understand you're not just going to be able to stop in anywhere and get more supplies? If you send an army to Sicily, you got to take everything with you that you need, right? Because I know it's not very far, but it's far enough that you can't just, oh, shoot, we're running short on flour. Somebody go get some more. We're running short on soldiers because they've been killed. Let's go get some more. It's not going to happen the next day. He said, the Sicilians have cavalry. They have horse soldiers. What will horse soldiers do to foot soldiers? They will run them over. They will chase them and catch them because the horse runs faster. So we're going to need horses. We're going to have to send as many ships as we already have.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We're going to have to double it, yeah. He said, you are talking about undertaking a war almost double of what we're already fighting. And he expected everyone to say, yeah, that's right, this is a bad idea. And they didn't. Yeah, let's do that. And Nikia says, okay, I don't think you understand the point of my speech. Let me put it this way. You're going to need to build twice as many ships. We're going to have to go recruiting again. Where are we going to recruit? From our allies, you know, the people that pay us money, the Delian League people who may or may not want to give us people in money. But we're going to have to make them. Get horses. We're going to have to recruit allies over here so they don't turn and attack us when we're over there. And in the meantime, you do understand that we still have an enemy here. You're going to take our armies away and leave behind you the Spartans and all their... And like, yeah, we're going to do that. So Nicias is like, okay, whatever. So they put Nicias and Alcibiades and one other guy in charge of this operation. Nicias doesn't even want to go. But a lot of people signed up. They're like, you know what? Yeah, it's dangerous and everything and far away, but Nicias is awesome. This is gonna be the best planned expedition ever. It's gonna be so safe. We're all gonna come back safe because we have so many horses and so many men and so much money and so much food. All right, so they head out to Sicily. Now, the night before they're going to leave, something happens in Athens. And people get up the next morning, and there's these statues of Hermes around the city, and someone has broken a bunch of them. Somebody's just whacked them. It's like the equivalent of, going around with Kansas spray paint or whatever, and they defaced statues of the gods, mind you. Not just like pretty decorative columns or something. They've whacked statues of a god. And everybody gets up in the morning and they're like, what happened in the night? Who did this? So they start interviewing suspects. Did you see anything? Did you hear anything? Did you get up in the night? What did you witness? And some people are like, well, I didn't really see anything. But I happen to know that there's a group of young men who party kind of hard, and they go out and do sorts of shenanigans in the night after they've been drinking a little bit. And Alcibiades is their leader. And once upon a time, we heard that they had a party where they mocked one of the sacred mysteries. It was sort of like if people were drinking and they had a mock church service in their house, like making fun of it. Okay, that sort of level. It's like they mocked the mysteries. I think Alcibiades did this. So like, Alcibiades, come here. He's like, what do you want? Did you do this? Do you know who did this? Like, okay. This is Alcibiades. If you've got evidence against me, bring it. Do you have a witness that I did this? Bring it. Otherwise, I'm supposed to leave today to go to Sicily with troops. If you think I did this, then you just keep me here. You relieve me of command and you put me on trial. And then people are like, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to hold up the Sicily expedition. You go ahead and we'll investigate, and we'll let you know what we find out. This sounds nice, but it wasn't. Because these guys hated Alcibiades, and they really just wanted to dig up dirt on him while he was gone, so they could charge him with something even worse, right? So like, no, go along. We'll be in touch. So we left. They get to Sicily. They make some stops along the way, right? And they try to recruit allies in Italy. But they get to Sicily. Then Athens sends a ship and says, hey, Alcibiades, we are summoning you home to Athens to stand trial for defacing the gods and your other shenanigans. Get on the ship. come straight home. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Come straight to Athens. He gets on the ship. This is the next question I asked you. What did Alcibiades do when he was accused of impiety, which means being disrespectful to the gods? And where did he end up? What did he do?
Exiled.
He ended up exiled, but you got to be exiled somewhere. Did he get on the ship and go back to Athens like a good boy? No, he did not. He got on the ship, and they landed in Italy, and he just jumped ship and ran away. He ran away with a friend. Where do we see him living next? Does anybody remember? Say that again. And who is Athens fighting right now? That'd be Sparta. He went over to the enemy. Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine how happy the Spartans are? Like, dude, we got one of the main head honchos of the Athenian army. He knows all their plans. He was the leader of the expedition to Sicily, and he's offering to help us. Alcibiades is really mad. In fact, I think Dorothy Mills said, let me read that. Oh, yeah. As Alcibiades did not appear in Athens to answer the charges against him, the assembly convicted him and his companions of impiety, confiscated their property, and sentenced them to death, and pronounced a solemn curse on all their names. When this news reached Alcibiades, all he said was, I will make them feel that I am alive. Oh, they're going to hear from me. So, he takes up with the Spartans. Let me read this paragraph. Now, one characteristic of Alcibiades was the extraordinary ease with which he could adapt himself to his surroundings, like a chameleon, you know? Whenever he saw that it was to his own interest to adopt the habits and ways of those with whom he came in contact, he did so with no hesitation. At Sparta, he gave himself up to athletic exercises, he cut his hair short, he bathed in cold water and dined on black broth. In Ionia, over in Asia Minor, he was luxurious and indolent, which means lazy. In Thrace, he was always drinking. In Thessaly, ever on horseback. He did whatever the people around him did, and he made them like him. So he lived with Sparta for a while. Now, I have to tell you about Sicily, though. Dorothy Mills didn't really tell you. It's not a good story. It's not a good story. First of all, the Athenians show up, and one of the leaders, not Nicias, says to Nicias, hey, we need to attack immediately. Well, we got the element of surprise, as they say, right? They'll never see it coming, and we'll swoop in there, and we'll take out Syracuse, and it'll be awesome. And Nicias, though, he's like a planner. He's the guy who makes not only one list, but many lists, right? And then collates the lists. It's like, well, I don't know if that's a good idea. Perhaps we should sail around the island and stop at every town and see if they want to join us. Which they did. Some joined, some didn't. But in the meantime, in Syracuse, they're getting ready for them, right? Then they land and they try to take Syracuse. They don't. They keep getting pushed back. Anyway, they ended up like there's this bay, right? Okay, and this is the city. This is Syracuse, right? And the Athenians are camped here, and they've got their ships here. These are ships. And the Syracusans have parked their ships. Parked. That's not exactly what you do to a ship. Anchored their ships, right? Out here. And the Athenians are running out of food. They're running out of supplies because they had a big supply dump right here, and the Syracusans took it. They pretended they were attacking up here, and the Athenians ran up here, and then while they were gone, they took all their stuff. They came back and their stuff was gone. They're like, things are bad, things are really bad, but hey guys, we're Athens. We're awesome in boats. Like nobody ever beats us in boats. We're amazing. We beat the Persians in boats. So we're just gonna sail out of the harbor and sail home. And they go out and they get beaten by the Syracusan army. By the way, now the Spartans have sent help to Syracuse. The Spartans are over here now too. And they come back, and then people are hurt, people are sick. And they're like, okay, all right, here's the deal. Nicias is the only guy left. The other general is dead. Nicias apparently has kidney disease. I think he has cancer or something, so he's always in pain. I said, here's the deal. We're going to load everybody we can into these ships, and we're just going to ram them. Like, we're going to put the pedal down as fast as we can go, and we're just going to plow through them. Because if we don't, we're probably all going to die. If we don't, we're just going to have to start wandering off through the countryside and try to find help. Try to get to a city in Sicily that likes us, however many of us can make it alive. So they get on their boats, they leave. Guys, they leave behind the really badly wounded. They just leave them. They're like, sorry guys, we only have enough food and room on the ships for people that can fight. You're just going to have to stay here and beg the Syracusans for mercy. And they get in their ships. I know, and they gun it. And they lose. They lose. They lose a lot of their ships. They lose all their men. They come back. And Nicias is like, okay, here we go. Here we go. By now, Athens has sent a second general to help because he sent a letter and he said, I have kidney disease and I'm sick all the time. Send me help. So there's two groups and they start running. And to make a long story short, they don't make it. Each group gets captured. They surrender. They surrender on terms that the Syracusans won't kill them. But outside Syracuse, there's a big rock quarry, you know, where you dig out rocks for building purposes, and there's a big pit. And they just put them in the pit till they decided what to do with them, to ransom them from Athens or whatever. They just put them in the pit, and they did give them some food, but they didn't give them enough water. And it was open, so the sun was shining on them all day, or rain or whatever. And, okay, so, like, the historian Thucydides says this nicely, but basically they have nowhere to go to the bathroom but in the pit. And then when people die, they don't take their bodies out. They just leave the dead. So you're in this pit. They were in there for like 2.5 months. Till they were almost all dead. And the ones left, they sold as slaves. Nicias though, actually it was probably better. They just outright just executed Nicias. After saying they wouldn't. The Spartan guy. It wasn't the Syracusans did. The Spartan guy says, no, we're killing him. So Nicias didn't suffer. But
the way Nicias did them in the pit.
yeah, it was awful. It was just awful. And so Thucydides says messengers come back to Athens. And remember, they left with such high hopes. We're going to take over Sicily. It's going to be amazing. And then some stragglers come in and says, yeah, well, they're all dead. You remember that twice as many men and twice as many ships and everything that we built and we got money for? It's all gone. And Thucydides says the people in Athens, first of all, they were stunned. And then they didn't believe it. It's like, no, that can't possibly be true. And then they got angry. Of course, they were the ones who wanted, voted to go. And then they said, well, what's our options here? I guess we'll just have to keep fighting and power on through it. You would think that would be the end for Athens, but the war went on another 10 years. I know. They scraped together more money, and they scraped together more men, and they built more ships, and they kept fighting.
Did they scrape it off the statue?
They talked about it. Thucydides also says there was 1,000 talents of silver or something in the treasury, and they set it aside, and they said at the beginning of the war, we're not touching that unless things are really, really bad. And then at this point, they're like, you know what, maybe we should use that 1,000 talents. Maybe we should dip into that again. Honestly, I don't remember if they went to the point of stripping gold off Athena. So, who won the Peloponnesian War? This was the next question I asked you. Sparta won. And all those ships, all those high hopes in Athens, and they finally won. So, when we last were talking about Alcibiades, he was living in Sparta. Dorothy Mills did not tell you this because fine, young, upstanding kids maybe don't. She thinks you don't need this information. But one of the kings of Sparta's wife took up with Alcibiades, and they had a child together. Oh. She had a child that was rumored. She called him in private little Alcibiades, which is kind of a tip-off. And so the king of Sparta really hated Alcibiades, obviously. So finally, in Sparta, they got tired of him, and he left there. And he went to Persia. He went to the Persians, who are still hanging out, right, over in Asia Minor. They're still hoping to pounce on whoever loses this war. And maybe they can grab some islands and grab some more land. And they were working with the Spartans at this time. But Alcibiades buddied up to the Persian governor, and he said, here's the deal. Here's what you should do. Promise to give the Spartans help, promise to pay them, but then don't. But then behind their backs, talk to the Athenians and give them money and help, and keep giving help to this side and help to this side, and then they'll just keep fighting and they'll all kill each other and you can take over. That's the plan. Just keep helping them to fight each other and keep making them promises, but don't do it. Alcibiades isn't stupid. He's what we say unscrupulous. It's not moral advice that he gives, but it's effective advice. And so for a while, the Persian governor does this. But eventually, Alcibiades is kind of homesick, I'd really like to go home to Athens someday, but of course I'm under sentence of death if I go back. So he starts talking to some people. He starts talking to the Persians again, and also some people that live over on the islands, and they want to revolt from Athens. They're allies, but they don't like it anymore. And Alcibiades says, here's the thing. I think that if we could just change the government in Athens, they would have me come back. We need to get rid of the democracy. Let's get a group of men, oligarchs, sort of a group of tyrants to take over Athens, and then maybe they'll miss me and they'll want me to come back. Alcibiades actually engineered the overthrow of the government so he could come home. They changed it back again to a democracy after not very long, but they did. They welcomed him back again. Like, oh, we forgive you. All those nasty things we chiseled in stone about how you're cursed forever because you were, defacing the god statues. We'll just erase that. We'll just chip that off. We'll forget that happened. He's in Athens for a while, and they drive him out again. He's always scheming. So he goes over here. At this point, Sparta knows what he's up to. Athens knows what he's up to. The governor of Persia knows what he's up to. And he's kind of burned all his bridges. So he's living up in the woods up here. And does everybody see how there's just a skinny strip of water here? Okay, so in this skinny strip of water, there's kind of a bend there, okay? And Alcibiades living up here in the woods somewhere, okay? And he would come down, and it just so happened that on one side, the Spartans were, probably the Athenians here. On one side, the Spartans have their ships anchored, and the other side, the Athenians. And they're around the bend, so they can't really see what the other is doing, right? And the Athenians would come out, every day they'd sail around, like, oh, you want to come fight us? Nah, you're all a bunch of scaredy cats. And then they go back again every evening, right? But Alcibiades goes up, and there's mountains up here, and he goes and he can see the whole thing below. He's like, the Athenians, the Spartans are going to creep up on them, and they're going to whoop them. So Alcibiades actually comes down to the Athenian general, and he says, look, you don't understand. They're doing maneuvers around the corner here, and someday they're going to come out and take you. He's like, no, 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 no. We'll see them coming. It'll be fine. Go home. Go home. Everybody hates you, Alcibiades. Go home. And so every day, the Athenians come out and the Spartans come out and they look at each other and then they sail back. One day, they sail out and the Spartans come out and they look at each other and then the Spartans start sailing away and the Athenians are like, well, done for today. And they go and they get off their ships and they start cooking food and everything. This is what the Spartans were waiting for everybody to get off their ships and be all relaxed and put their weapons down and be sitting around their fires, you know, like roasting hot dogs or whatever. And Sparta came and got them. Took every Athenian ship except 5. Athens only had 5 ships left.
So like 100 ships?
Yeah, yeah. So, and then they immediately went to Greece and they blockaded the harbor for Athens until Athens gave up. Poor Alcibiades, I don't know if I should say poor Alcibiades, he kind of earned it, but the Persian governor got tired of Alcibiades and all his malarkey and sent basically hitmen to kill Alcibiades. And they snuck up on his little hut where he's living in the woods, but he heard them coming, and he decided to grab his sword and go out and fight as well as he could. He fought off as long as he could, went inside the building, and they set it on fire, and they burned it down around him, and they killed him. That was the end of the career of Alcibiades. It's quite a colorful character, to say the least. So the war was over, and last question. Were the Spartans more gentle rulers than the Athenians had been?
Nope, they were for the first bit, and then they just went.
Yeah. I mean, Spartans are pretty tough anyway, right? And so everybody, you know, all the allies of Athens, yay, our tyrant Athens has been overthrown. Well, don't party yet. It says, it soon became evident that the rule of Sparta was not to be a light one. Military governors were placed in every city of the old Delian League, and the citizens were forced to pay a heavy tribute to Sparta. 30 men were set to rule Athens, and for the 8 months these 30 were in power, Athens endured cruelty, tyranny, lawlessness. They went through Athens executing everyone who seemed suspicious, who seemed to hate the Spartans. This is the 30. They call them the 30. It was terrible. It was terrible. You know, Sparta won, but nobody won, if you know what I mean. Greece was kind of ruined. And we're going to read, between now and Christmas break, we're going to see Greece sort of slowly unraveling, you know. We are going to skip a chapter. There's an episode where the city of Thebes has a great general and actually besieges and takes Sparta. Sparta, the king's fighters, right? The Thebans come and take them out. I mean, everything was unraveling. Greece lost so many men and so much wealth. It was really hard to come back from that. And it was really set up that if someone wanted to come take over Greece now, they could. And we'll just wait and see who that might be. It's not going to be Persia this time. They've got nothing left. Now, the last chapter, or last section that you read, is this way cool story that has really nothing to do with the rest of this. But there's a guy named Xenophon. He's a friend of Socrates, the philosopher we're going to read about next week. And he was fought in the Peloponnesian War. Well, the war was over. But you know, this war had been going on for almost 30 years. And there were a lot of people who made their money being soldiers, right? And they really didn't know how to make their money any other way, if you know what I mean. That was my job. I've always been a soldier. So, over in Persia. Over here. This is part of Persia, but over here. The Persian king died. And he had 2 sons. Artaxerxes and Cyrus were his 2 sons. And Artaxerxes got to be king next. But Cyrus didn't think much of that. I'm like, I'd be a better king than Artaxerxes. So he decides to take his brother out. But he needs soldiers. So there were still Greek soldiers after the war, sort of clean up operations. I mean, the war was basically over, but they're here. And Xenophon was one of these soldiers. And Cyrus sends messengers to these Greek soldiers and says, hey, I got a potential job for you. You want a job? Sure. Does it pay well? Oh yeah, I'll pay well. All right, where are we going? Oh, not too far. Not too far. He doesn't tell them where they're going or what they're going to do. But they're like, we're in, which maybe was the first mistake. So they start marching, and they just head, this general direction. And the Greeks don't mind as long as they're around here. But as they start going this way, they're like, wait. Where are we going? How far away from the sea are we going? Do you remember when the Persians sent to Sparta for help, and they're like, or it was the Ionian cities sent to Sparta for help. They're like, we can march in, and the Spartan king said, how far is it? A 3 months march. And the Spartan king said, I don't think so. We don't go 3 months from the sea. These guys were just marching, and they looked at each other like, okay, this is a much farther trip than we thought. Also, I'm kind of 99% sure he's about to attack his brother. 99% sure we are marching to the capital of Persia to attack the king. Oh my goodness, what have we done? But they're already there. Do you know what are they going to do? They don't know the way back. So they keep marching and marching. They get to the heartland of Persia, and they have this big battle against Artaxerxes. They actually win. But Cyrus is also mortally wounded. So their leader is dead. They've killed the king of Persia, but their leader is dead. And there's 10,000 Greek soldiers, and they don't know what to do now. They don't have a leader, and they're months away from the sea where they can sail home. So Xenophon takes control. He says, okay, guys, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here somehow. So they band together, and 10,000 of them just start marching. They just start marching north. They're attacked by wild animals. They're attacked by other tribes that live in the area. They go to sleep one night, and it snows on them, and some of them freeze to death in the snow. And they just keep marching, because what are you going to do? It's like, Dory, it's like, just keep swimming, right? Just keep marching. Finally, they're marching in this long line. I mean, they've lost a lot of people to weather and sickness and, animals and everything. And the line stops. And Xenophon isn't in the front. He's like, what's the problem? And he hears screaming. He hears screaming in the front of the line. It's like, oh, that's not good. So Xenophon runs up there, and famously, the people in the front are screaming, Thalata, Thalata, the sea, the sea. And they've made it to the Black Sea. They're so excited. Oh my gosh, I don't know where exactly we are, but there's a place with ships, and we can get on ships and sail home. The march is over. Oh, Thalata, Thalata, the sea, the sea. And so it took them a while to get enough ships to get home, but they did make it home. And then Xenophon wrote a book. He wrote several books, but he wrote a book called the Anabasis. Anabasis means the march up. And it's the march up isn't up on the map, it's the march up into high ground. The march up country, sometimes they translate it. And it's just like this thrilling story of the march of these guys, get freezing to death and getting eaten by animals, and crazy tribes in the mountains flinging stuff on them. And I mean, that's basically what it is. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So some people stopped fighting. Some people just went somewhere else and kept fighting. But in general, it's not good. It's not good for Greece. That is the very famous story of the Peloponnesian War. It's not a very happy story. And Athens, you know all those beautiful things we looked at and those papers you wrote for me on temples and everything? It was about a 50-year period, a 50, 70-year period. And then things were ruined again. I mean, that golden age. So you don't have to write these down. So in 480, that was the Battle of Salamis. All right, that's when they finally got rid of the Persians, right, for good. And the next day, 479, or the next year was the Plataea, so it was done. And then in 430-something, 430-ish, the war started. You know, and by 401, it's done. So this time period is we're building the Parthenon, we're building all these temples, we have Socrates. Socrates died in 399. He's philosophizing. He's going through Athens and asking people about the good life and to take care of their souls. And the most beautiful art, architecture, thought, everything, all happened in that little time period. And then the war went downhill. Just a little time. It's so sad. It makes me sad that they had it all and they lost it all because they couldn't get along. All right. For next week, what are we reading for next week? We are skipping. So again, Bren and Ann, I will inform you. I'll look at my notes, and I'll tell you the names of things. We are skipping to chapter 19. Wow. In my book, it's chapter. Well, we're going to go back and reread, but it's because I want you to read about Socrates. In this book, they separate philosophers out to their own section. Like they do all the history, and then they do the philosophy, but I want to do it in the right time. So we're reading chapter 19. This chapter is called The Gifts of Greece to the World.
Oh, yeah, 19.
If it's not, or if it's pages 344 to 367, which is in your reading guide, if your pages are the same. And this is parts 1 through 3. Parts 1 through 3. Okay? So we're going to meet Socrates and some of the great philosophers. And also we're going to be reading a book that has to do with Socrates. Okay, so that's for next time. We're also going to finish the Cat of Bubastes for next time. Just finish the book. And for the rest of our time, I want to talk about what we're going to write. We started this last week, but first, I have stuff to show you. So when Chebron and Amuba and Jethro are running away, they hid out in a cave for a while, right? There's caves up in the hills. And the guy who hid them, do you remember what his job is? What does he do for a living? What did they do at that place? He's an embalmer. He makes mummies. He turns people into mummies. And G.A. Hinty tells us that there are like the high-price mummies, there's the mid-price mummies, and then there's the bargain mummies, right? And it depended on how fancy a stuff they wrapped him in, how long they soaked him in the salt, right? And so G.A. Hinty told us a very detailed, sort of gruesome description of making a mummy. Does anybody know why? I mean, you guys are familiar with this, right? We all know mummies. If you've never been to the Putnam Museum, I assume you probably all have. There's a mummy in the basement.
Yep.
So if we go visit the mummy in the basement, goodness sense, there's a mummy in the basement. Go visit the mummy. But why would they do such a thing? Luke, why do you think they did that? And why would they want to preserve them? Why not just let them rot?
So they can live forever.
So they can live forever, because why does having your body look the same help you live forever? Do you know if they actually thought that body got up and did things? They didn't think that, because if you're going to wrap someone in a bunch of linen cloths, they're not going to be very active. Even if you're still alive and you get wrapped in a bunch of cloths, you're not going to be very active, right? Here's the deal. They thought everybody had two like spirit things, kind of like spirit and soul. They called it your ba and your ka.
Oh, okay.
I didn't make it up. And so one of them stayed in the tomb, but one of them went back and forth like to the world of the dead. But if it came back and it couldn't recognize the body, it wouldn't know where to go. It needed to be able to recognize its body. And so they preserved these bodies, and I mean, it is so weird. If you go to the Putnam one or look in pictures, books, it's, oh, crud, I didn't bring the book that I wanted. Okay, I'll bring it next week. They still had skin. I mean, they still looked. I did forget the book. Okay. Oh, rats. Okay, I'll bring it next week. I did bring stuff. So, I mean, they still have skin and hair and stuff. So they basically, they have to take out the parts of you that will rot.
The eyes?
Well, the internal organs. So they have to take out your insides. So they this is so lovely, but I can't resist talking about it. They inject your skull with something and it liquefies your brain, and they drain it out through your nose.
Liquefies.
But they took several of your organs out. The funny thing is, they didn't take your heart because they didn't know what hearts were for. It's like, oh, that's a lame. Like, well, let's leave that in there. I don't know what that is.
They thought the heart was actually the brain of your body, so we're able to keep it there.
So
The actual brain was used. Oh, my
they
God.
had a series of jars called canopic jars,
There's nothing in there, right?
and there were four. One god for each one. This is Sekhet. She watches over the intestines. And then they have one for like the stomach and one for the liver and everything. And they put them. They have some of these. Okay, this isn't old. This isn't real. This is just, a made one that my crazy son gets me stuff for Christmas. You know what I mean? So you have to. This is my husband's fault, because he told me to buy some intestines. So, except it's just Halloween intestines. Except they're not long. I wanted something, because he's like, wouldn't it be funny to reach in and just pull out these intestines?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that'd be funny. So I put intestines in my jar. Mrs. Hunt has missed the intestines coming out of the canopic jar for the joy of everyone. No. And so then the rest of the body, they pack it with salt, with natron, and they basically dry it like a raisin or something, you know what I mean, and preserve it and wrap it up. So then your ba and your ka can come back and recognize the body. And so remember, it says they did this to Joseph in Egypt. Joseph was a renowned, second to Pharaoh, right?
Yeah.
I bet he got the high class mummy package, not the bargain package. Does anybody remember what became of Joseph's mummy ever?
He was carried out with them when they left Egypt.
Yeah, I love that story for some reason. When he was dying, he said, I know God will take you out of this place someday. When you go, take me. I want to lie in the land promised to my fathers by God. And they did. It says, and they took the bones of Egypt, of Joseph, up out of Egypt with them. So canopic jars. So Chebron and Amuba and Jethro are hiding in a place where they do the embalming. And, it was really important for them that this be done. How did they learn to do this? Who knows? But you might know that when things are in a desert environment, they naturally are preserved, right? Water tends to make things rot. And when things are very, very dry in the desert or buried in sand, they actually last a really, really long time. So maybe they noticed this and then they refined the process, I don't know. Okay, I have something else, but it's not gross. When they got to the underworld, they, the dead person, when their Ba and their Ka got to the underworld, they were going to meet a certain number of gods, and they were going to have to give an accounting for themselves. This is a way in which, like the truth, they had a glimpse of the truth. It is basically there's something after this life, and someone to whom we will give account of ourselves, right? And so they said that they would, weigh your heart in the scales, and if it was weighed down, it meant you were wicked. If it was lighter, it meant you weren't wicked. Well, we have found these scrolls, this Book of the Dead, and it's basically the instructions of what you're supposed to do and say after you die. And they would put these sometimes in tombs. And so this goes through the whole thing. Some pages are just hieroglyphic. It's just information. And of course, after Jean-Francois Champollion figured out how to read it, yay, we know what the instructions are. Some pages are illustrated like this with lots of information, but just sort of like a picture book, right? And then some pages are almost all picture of Osiris judging you in the underworld. I think what? Yes, I think that is the front cover. Here on the back cover is, I don't know where it is in the book, it's Anubis, the jackal-headed god, and he's weighing them. So he's got scales there, and they're weighing them in scales, weighing his heart. There's scales, yes. I'll leave this out, and you can look through it. Here he is at the bottom, and he's got two scales, two trays there. I don't know in this particular case. I believe they put a feather in one, and your heart in the other, and then it's to be lighter than the feather. So this was a real treasure trove, and we find these in tombs sometimes. So we know a lot, since we can read the hieroglyphics now. We know a lot about what they believed. So let's shift over to the Cat of Bubastes. And last week, we started a chart. And our question, and so if you have your chart with you, if you have the place where you're writing things down, let's get that out. First of all, we'll see if anybody added to it, and then we'll see if we can organize it. Our question is, should Chebron and Amuba flee? Now, remind me, what did they do that was wrong? They killed a cat. The sacred cat of Bubastes. It was the next chosen cat who's going to live in the temple. Like cats don't already live a cushy enough life. Now this cat's going to go and she's going to lay on cushions? What? Yes, that was its life. Paucus. Paucus is dead, but not through any malicious intent, right? It was all simply an accident. And when we left off our reading last week, Chebron went to his dad. Chebron's a pretty good guy, don't you think? I mean, he's really concerned with doing the right thing. If he does something bad, he goes and confesses to his dad immediately, and he asks for his advice. So he goes to his dad, and Dad, we did it. I did it. I am probably, when I get weighed, my heart is going to plummet to the bottom of those scales because I killed a cat, and the gods hate me. And he really thought Amaris was going to be horrified. How did his dad react? Do you remember?
Well, that's no good. We're going to have to get you to flee or something.
Well, yes, but did he say the gods hate you forever and you're cursed? And no, because what does Amaris believe about the gods?
That there's one God and all of them are just mere images of the gods.
Yeah, he says like crocodiles and cats and all these animals, they're not really gods. They're just the way we understand aspects of gods. It's like Paucus was just a cat.
A big fat cat.
A big fat cat. Oh, by the way, I just feel I'm wearing my mummies today, just so that everybody's amused. To remind us. Yeah, he said, you haven't done anything wrong. But will everyone else think you did something wrong? By the way, why do you think I think we talked about this a little bit last week. Why don't the priest just tell everybody the truth? Yeah, because it's really hard to convince people to believe something different, isn't it? Remember, apparently, scientifically, the sun is in the middle of the solar system and the planets go around it, right? And it wasn't so much a church problem when they said, we think this is the way it is, as it was just that's not the way we've ever thought about it problem. Do you know what I mean? If you believed something for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and then somebody said, no, it's a different way. People are hard to convince, and sometimes they get really angry at you for saying something different. So they would get angry. Also, how do the priests make their living? Yeah, and what if you're the priest of Isis and somebody says Isis isn't a goddess? What is your... Yeah, business plummets, indeed. You're out of a job. It's not good. It's not good for you. So he doesn't tell them. Do you remember? So you remember that Misa and Ruth got kidnapped because that Rotter son of the Rotter priest wants to marry her, right? And they rescue her, and it's like, oh, I heard this terrible thing, Chebron, that you killed a cat. Oh, please, you didn't kill a cat. It's like, you know what? I'm really sorry. I did. But it was an accident. She's like, oh, Chebron, how could you? And you know what I noticed? They don't tell her. Dad says that Paucus wasn't, that Bastet isn't really a god and cats aren't really gods. He doesn't tell her. He just says, well, Dad says it's okay, but we're going to have to run because people are mad at us. But they don't tell her the whole truth. Why do you think they don't tell her?
Because she still believes it's a god.
Yeah. But you want to add to that, Anne?
Because she's like one of the people, and the people are going to be mad.
Yeah. It's at the very least she might get mad.
Going with them.
Yeah, she's not going to kill her brother or anything. She's not going to go crazy and nuts. But it would really upset her. I really like that Chebron cares so much about his sister that he doesn't tell her things that she's not ready to hear. Right? Okay. So last week, now I took a picture of this. And I should have transferred it to something bigger. Oh, no, that's not what I want to hit. Hang on. Let me see. Okay, here we go. So we had on the yes side, should Chebron and Amuba flee, we said things like, it's death penalty. People will be mad. And, you want to say it, Julia? What was the other thing under that?
Chebron dies, his parents will have no heir,
And they'll be devastated, right? Because they've already lost one son. That seems like a good reason. We also they killed a god.
/cat.
Yeah, and we put God in quotation marks. Chebron believes it's a god, and this is going to disgrace his family. We also put Amuba's kingdom has no king. They have a ready-made place to go, and also they're just going to be completely paranoid. Right? They're going to be looking over their shoulders constantly saying, oh my gosh, did somebody find out? Did somebody dig up that cat? Which is no way to live. And I drew a little line to the interesting, Amuba is a prince, and if he dies, there will be no more royal heir. And we decided that goes very well with the idea that his kingdom is kingless, and they're waiting for a king. Did anyone, so in the part that you read this week, we don't have to ask ourselves what will happen if they flee, because they did flee.
Yeah.
Right? So, is it going well or is it going poorly? Do you think, so far in what you've read, does it seem they've made a good decision? Did anything happen that confirms you in that decision?
Well, they might have found out about the cat, or maybe that's just an accusation.
Yeah, okay. So, they did, the cat was found. Were there any witnesses? Kinda, sorta? Yeah, the gardeners said, you know, those boys come here, and I saw that they come here with their bows and arrows sometimes. So technically, it was kind of a witness. He didn't actually see them shoot the arrow and it bounced off the stick and hit the cat. But he said, I saw them go in there and they had bows and arrows. And of course, they dug up the cat. They can see it was shot with an arrow. I mean, they know how it died. It didn't die of old age. Didn't die of poison. So the cat was actually found. This makes it sound like they were going to have to flee regardless. What happened when the cat was found?
They killed his dad.
They killed Amiris. They murdered Amiris. Do you think they would have any qualms about killing Chebron and Amuba and Jethro? Maybe. Misa and Ruth. Maybe. If they could get their hands on him. Are these people pretty mad?
Oh, yes.
They're like rioting level mad, aren't they, in the book?
Killed their king.
Yeah, yeah. They killed, they just murdered him. And they are on the rampage. Do you remember that Amuba, Amuba would sneak down and Jethro, and they would darken their faces a little bit because apparently the Rebu live in the far north and they're more like Scandinavian looking with light skin and blonde hair and everything, so they don't blend in very well. And of course everybody knows, Mary's has those Rebu servants, and they're really easy to spot. So they were in disguise. And do you remember what happened when somebody recognized Chebron?
Yeah.
What did he do?
He started yelling, like, this is the slayer of the sacred cat.
Yeah, and he started kind of a miniature riot. And they chased him. I mean, they ran and ran and ran. Poor Amuba tried to draw him off, and they were about getting ready to beat Amuba to death. Who saved Amuba? Moses! Yay! Moses. So now we know exactly when we knew the Israelites were there. Now we know exactly when this book is taking place, because Moses is there. He's a prince, right? But he's kind of separating himself a little bit from the Egyptian family in this book because he knows he's an Israelite. And so he saves him. But yeah, I mean, so maybe we could put rioting, violence. I mean, we see that there was lots of rioting and lots of violence. Was there any other, let's see, so we know what does happen. I think we said this last time, but let's reiterate. What would have happened if Chebron had still been there when they broke in and they found the cat?
They would have killed him.
Yeah.
They would have burned him.
All would have been killed. I mean, we don't even have to speculate. We can see from the book this absolutely, totally would have happened. We don't even have to wonder.
They
This is-
thought that they would leave the girls, the ladies be. But
Oh, you mean if they run away, they thought they might save the girls? Is that what you mean, or?
no, they thought that the mob would touch all the.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So you can change that to the men would have been killed, or you can say Chebron and Amuba and Jethro would have been killed. Because you're probably right, Bryn. They were speculating that maybe they'll just grab Misa and make her marry that nasty guy, and because what is her mother like? Chebron and Misa's mother. What do you think of her?
She only likes well.
She's a little self-absorbed, isn't she? Yeah. We don't. We are, but this woman is really, really, really. So much so. Yeah, she doesn't care. Why does she want Misa to marry that nasty guy?
Because they'll get hopefully she'll get a lot of money.
Yeah, because he's rich and he's powerful and he's renowned. Not because he's nice. Not because he'll be nice to her. All right. Okay, on the no side, let's recall what we had last week. We had guilty people run away. It will make them look guilty. Now, is it possible if they didn't run away, they found the cat and somebody shot the cat, but there are no, I said there's a witness, but there's no witness to the actual killing. When you run away, though, it does make you look guilty. You know, now they know someone killed the cat because they found it. And we also said they might fire his dad. Well, they did worse than that, didn't they? Even though they did run away. Chebron would be away from his family. We said they will miss each other. His parents will be left alone. Well, his dad's dead. And he's not there to protect his dad. But it's too late. And Misa will be sad. Well, that problem has been solved, hasn't it? How did that get solved? Misa's coming with. And Ruth. And it's going to be difficult. I don't think that has changed. There's no food. They might endanger people who help them. What do you think would happen to that embalmer guy if they found out that they were hiding up there?
They'd kill him.
I think they'd probably kill him. Did anybody tweak their no list? Did anybody add anything? Yes.
I put it's only Jethro to protect him so that if he gets killed, then no one.
Okay. Only protector is Jethro. Although, Amuba has been growing. I think he was 14 or 15 when the book started. And at some point, this says he's 18. He's getting, that's not really prime. I think like 20 to 25 is supposed to be prime, man strength. But he's getting there. He can really hold his own in a fight. But right now, their only protector is Jethro. If he dies, they're sunk. I'm just saying this. They're sunk. This is true. Did anybody else have another no? They shouldn't. The plot kind of pushed us in a yes direction, didn't it? But still, I think we have enough no that we could make an argument for that. We also are finding out how very hard this trip's going to be. Do you remember they decided to head? Everybody thinks they're going to go north to get a ship. So they're like, we'll go south, and then we'll cut over towards the Red Sea, and we'll go up and we'll work our way back north.
Do they think that they're going north because of Anuba and the chariot that he drove?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was very smart. You know what? I'm just going to put, they are smart.
They were smart.
I don't know. You know what? Like Amuba and the chariot episode. They have enough smarts to get away. But of course, that's a no, too. They are smart enough, maybe they could outwit
So I'm gonna put that in
their enemies. So that could be, yeah. They are smart could be a, sure, yeah, and your other things, that could be in the middle. Because they could use that either way. But I think it's true. All right. Well, this week, what I want you to do is choose a side. That's the first step. I don't want you to argue yes and no. I want you to actually choose a side. And then we've got to organize our paper. Now, can I erase this? Is everybody ready for me to erase this? Okay, because I would like to use the board. We have already done a paper like this, right? You've already done one. We're going to actually add something new to it. What was the other one? What was the one we were? Oh, yeah, should the Greeks, how could I forget
Should the
that?
Greeks attack Troy?
Yeah. So what you need to do is pick a side. Two, make an outline. What is our outline going to look like? It is going to look like this. Now, next week we meet, but the week after that is Thanksgiving, and we will not meet. So I guess we have a couple of options. And because we've got 15 minutes here and we've got time, maybe we could discuss those options. Option number one is I tell you everything I want for this paper, and you go ahead and write it all this week and give it to me. Then you have no writing over Thanksgiving break. Option two is we just talk about the body, and then next week we talk about the introduction and conclusion, and you finish it over Thanksgiving break. What do we like? We got to vote, Emma. What do you like? Do it all now or split it?
If
Just a second.
we weren't picking sides, I'd probably suggest write the outline now and then work on the paper over the Thanksgiving week. But we're picking sides. So why don't we just pick a random side and then discuss how we want this
Okay.
to work with the introduction and conclusion.
Okay.
And then everybody can just pick their own side
Okay,
later.
so Emma's saying maybe like everything this week. How many people would like to do everything this week?
Me?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so you knots are here's the thing. Because there are few enough of us that I can do this, I'm going to talk about everything. If you want to write the whole paper this week, go for it. If you don't, it's not late. Okay? And I don't know, Olivia, if you've had time to read. I don't know if you're kind of on board to do this, but Amelia, it's not late. And I can reiterate more about the paper next week for people who don't want to do the whole thing. All right? But let's just kind of go over it. It's really not, I mean, I'm making a big deal out of it. It's not rocket science. It's not going to be real tough. This part you have already done, right? It's going to be reason number 1, reason number 2, and reason number 3, right? Just like your Greeks attacking Troy. And then each of these has 3 supports. So you remember, your reason needs to be a big reason, not a tiny reason. Like they should not flee because they will have trouble finding food. That's a small, that's hard to support. But they should not flee because the journey will be hard. Oh.
And they won't be able to find food.
And then not able to find food could be one of our things. Like no food, no friends, Jethro is their only protector. I mean, boom, and we got it done. So these are always big reasons. Actually, I made my own outlines of both sides. I'm going to share them with you. So I'm going to make it, it's going to be pretty easy for you. But does everybody understand the idea? Mm-hmm. And then, and that's the part you wrote before. This time we're going to add an introduction and a conclusion. And I'm going to tell you exactly what goes in those. An introduction does these things. First of all, it attracts your reader. How does it do that? What makes you want to read this paper? I will read it no matter what. But if you were writing a newspaper article or a magazine article or something, or like a blog on the internet, you don't want people to just start it and then just zip past. You want them to actually read it. So how do we attract our reader? You could ask a question. What would you feel like if you had to leave your friends and family, maybe forever, and go on the run into places unknown? Would that be frightening for you? Well, it certainly was for Chebron and Amuba. You see, and now...
For Chebron and Amuba. Let's explain the book to them.
Yes, and that's actually coming up too. We could give a command. So instead of asking questions, say, imagine. Imagine you've done something unthinkable. And the only way to save your family is to run away. You see, and now if I read that, I'm like, oh, I can imagine. That would be awful. What would I do? You see, now, ooh, I want to read this. And you've sucked them in, and they want to know. What else does an introduction do? It gives the backstory. What do I need to know to make sense of this paper? Well, I need to know there's the name of the book and maybe the author of the book. That would be good. In the book, The Cat of Bubastes by G.A. Henty. And then I need to give a plot summary. So I know this sounds, write this down, but it's really easy. Imagine you are on the run for your life. This is what happens to the main characters in The Cat of Bubastes by G.A. Henty. In this book, 2 young men accidentally kill a sacred cat. And when everyone is angry and wants to kill them, they go on the run for their lives. I mean, that's it. You don't have to tell me the whole, once upon a time, Amuba was a prince of the Rebu, and they just, no. Like 1 or 2 sentences. Just tell me what I gotta know to make this make sense, right? So it doesn't, in fact, it's better to be very concise, right? And not go back to the beginning, like don't give me the whole book. And that's all. That's all you need to do for giving the backstory. The third thing you do is give your position and 3 reasons. In other words, I think it was a good idea for Chebron and Amuba to flee because this, and this, and then give these.
No.
And your introduction is done.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be really long.
But
Just tell me, do something to suck me in. Tell me what I need to know to make sense of it. And then tell me what you're arguing in this paper. I am arguing, yes, they should flee, or no, they should so not flee because of this, and this. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes. But because,
Go ahead, Emma.
but because detail my introduction is probably going to be longer than all my 3 reasons. in
That
conclusion.
might be.
Because that's the
In
whole
the
point.
conclusion, we repeat our 3 reasons. As you can see, it was a good idea for them to flee because of this, and this. And then this one's an opinion. Which is most important and why? Obviously, they should flee because of this, and this. But the most important reason was to save others near and dear to them, because family is more important than comfort. All right? It's just your opinion. Like, there's no right answer there. You just pick the one that you think, oh, I think this is my best reason. And I'm going to say why I think it's the best reason. So your paper will have 5 paragraphs. The middle part is just going to be exactly like the Greece versus Troy paper, with the first reason they should flee is blah. This is true because of this, and this. The second reason they should flee is because of this, and this. Okay, I'm running out of noises to make. Now, I don't want to erase anything until people are done writing, but I see pencils still moving. Evelyn, are you good? Can I erase? Can I erase this? Everybody's good? Okay, because I need more room. Because I told you I would share my ideas with you. And basically, you might, I want you to look at the chart. Keep that chart that we had from last week out. Let's see if we can come up with 3 big, not the supporting, big, that we can say lots about for each side. What do you think is a big yes?
The death penalty.
Okay,
Death penalty.
death penalty. That is a biggie. I should run away because they will kill me if I don't run away.
And not just kill you, they kill you.
Yes, and so here's some points I put down. Chevron doesn't deserve to die because it was an accident. It's going to be really hard to hide it. And then we can add from this week, they killed his father, so that shows you what they would do to him. His whole family will be disgraced if somebody's executed by the government. There's lots we could say about this. This is not a small reason. This is a big reason.
They killed a god or a cat for yes.
We don't have that.
Okay.
We do have a people too.
Yeah, we that could be that they killed I'm going to put God. All right.
Well,
And then we could talk about the fact that even though Amirius doesn't believe it, everybody else does.
Yeah.
This could be a subsidiary, could explain why death penalty, but in this case, we would just have to think of three things, like everybody believes it's a cat. They had many, many animal gods in Egypt. This was a special cat because it had been chosen to be in the temple. It's a very important one. All right. So that would work. Is there another reason that's big? Like we have lots we could say
The
about.
cat was found, a witness, they killed Amarius. That's what we have right there.
that could also
Okay, under in danger.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, right now, we're not looking for we're looking on your list to see if we can find something big that we can say a lot of other things about it.
we don't have a lot of big yeses.
Yeah.
What could we call? Here's some things we wrote down. We wrote down that Amuba is a prince, and so they have a place to go, that they are looking for a new king at home, maybe. They do have Jethro to protect them. All of those little reasons could be part of a bigger reason. Can you think what some of those things, what we could call all of those together? What do you think?
Amuga is a prince of the refuge.
That could be a support of a bigger reason.
Have a place to go.
That it's possible. Like flight, flight. I don't mean flight like fleeing is possible. It's doable. It's doable. Okay, I don't like that. Fleeing is possible because flight is not possible for them. Fleeing is possible. Does that make sense to you guys? And then we have all those reasons. They have a place to go. They have help. They have that embalmer guy who helps them on their way. They have, that his dad has friends who will help them. We have things we could say about that. I had one more that I chose as a biggie. And it was staying endangers his family. However, I don't know that I love this now.
Because it's only the mom.
Yeah, because his dad is dead, and the rest of them are now all going because Misa's going. So that one's
Well, I mean, getting killed is being endangered, right?
Well, yes. But well, now it's too late. Everybody who might be endangered by their staying is either going with them or dead. But look what we have. 1, 2. Say again, Christian.
What about his uncles and aunts?
Oh, maybe. We didn't hear about them, but maybe. So, I mean, this could be a maybe for. But see, really, you just had to have 3. So if you can come up with 3 supports, 3 reasons this is true, you've done that whole section of your paper. Let's see if we can target 3 big no's. What's a big no? I basically only found 3 that I grouped. But I want to throw it out to you.
Be away from his family.
Okay.
Guilty people run.
Yeah, guilty.
Okay, guilty people run. Guilty. Well,
What about like?
yeah, guilty people run.
It would be difficult.
Yeah.
Because there would be no food, the enemy,
Okay, difficult.
and people who help him are endangered.
Okay, so that could be all under here. No food, endanger others,
Material.
now we could also add, they have to take care of Misa and Ruth. Like, I don't know what their options are. Now they've killed the guys who kidnapped Ruth, you know what I mean? They've dug themselves into an even deeper pit. But, Egypt has many allies, right? So when they're traveling north, all those places they're going to travel through are allies of Egypt. And if they send out, like the police send out those artist renderings, it's like, have you seen this man? Have you seen these people traveling? That could be a problem. How about guilty people run? I put, well, here's what I put. Makes them look guilty. You can just cross that at the previous. Why? Because guilty people run. What else did I put? Maybe I could put my glasses on so I can see what I wrote. They could stay and pretend. In other words, they could just pretend they didn't know about it. Maybe that is not going to be possible anymore. I put a Mary's will cover for them, but that's not true anymore. Is there anybody left who might, if they don't run away, is there anybody left to shield them from punishment with a Mary's dead?
Maybe they can be friends with the governor.
Well, you know what? The Pharaoh does really like his dad. So I wrote this down, but now Amari's is dead, so he can't do that. But maybe Dad's friend Pharaoh
But
will cover for them. Maybe.
Maybe. But I mean, once they find out that they killed the sacred cat, which is basically a god, will their minds change because pharaohs are very cruel in the time of Moses.
Yeah. It is not, this is a good, Emma makes a very good point. The thing who we're dealing with here, the guy who throws babies into the Nile, or his son, as the case may be. So, and here's my third. They can't get away. I'm pretending that they can't get away. I have lots to say about that. They killed the chosen cat, for crying out loud. Do you think they're just going to let them walk? They're going to have search parties out everywhere looking for them. They have a lot of possible people. They have the whole Egyptian army they could send.
Nowhere safe to go.
Yeah, they have lots of resources. Egypt has lots of resources. And Egypt is powerful all over that area. So do you get the idea of what we're doing here? You might think of another biggie, but those were my 3 biggies on each side. You may steal those from me.
Steal.
But you're not stealing from me. We came up with these together. I did this by looking at the list you helped me make last week. I didn't just materialize this out of thin air. I read our list, and I thought, okay, this is what we did. So what you're going to do is the 5 paragraphs. I need to add one more thing. I told you it was going to be a lot to do in 1 week. We're going to add something new to our papers. I'm going to have to keep you a few minutes over, and I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the way it is. Okay. We are going to do a simile, which you're getting really good at. We're going to do alliteration. We're also going to add something called an ing opener. What does that mean? An opener is the first word of the sentence.
Starting a sentence that starts with a ing.
With an ing.
With an ing. What is
A
ing?
verb that ends in ing. Running away.
Running away could cause further problems for their family.
Okay.
That's just
Yeah.
she just said that, and I was
Yes,
just
but
elaborating.
there are 2 kinds of ing openers. And now I know you're all gonna make this mistake, and I'm gonna be very gracious
I
to
was
you.
waiting for this.
But running, I don't remember what you said.
Running away could cause danger.
Running away could cause danger. Okay, that's a very good sentence. It's not the one we're going for, but it's a great test sentence. Okay, and then look at this one. Running away.
Running away
Amoeba and Jethro.
Oh, that with a comma. Come across enemies.
Yeah, came across enemies. Thank you.
With a comma, of course.
Yes. Now, this isn't now a grammar lesson, but it's a good one. What is the subject of this sentence? What causes danger?
Running away.
Running. Away is actually an adverb that tells us running where. Running could cause danger. Just a second, Gabriel. It is the subject of the sentence. Running is a thing. What can cause danger? Running can cause danger. Now, look at this one. What is the subject of this sentence? This sentence. Amoeba and Jethro. Amoeba and Jethro came across enemies. What describes Amoeba and Jethro? Running.
They're running.
What kind of Amoeba and Jethro? A running Amoeba and Jethro. This is the one we want. It's the participle one. But I know I will get these. That's okay. We might point them out. Well, it's a learning process. But here's...
How to put that in a persuasive paper that people basically try to convince someone, yes, they should run away or no, it's a bad mistake.
Well, it takes some creativity. But listen to this, guys. There's one last thing before I let you go, because I really need to let you go. Here's what you can't do. Running away, the dead cat caused many difficulties. Yeah, you see, the problem here is the thing, no. The problem, well, yes, that. The problem is the thing doing the inging has to be the subject. Because here the dead cat is running away. The running away dead cat. No. We have to say running away Amoeba and Jethro. So it's the difference between this. I can say, driving down the road, I saw many beautiful flowers. That's fine. I, driving down the road, saw many beautiful flowers. We can't say, driving down the road, flowers were everywhere. Because now the flowers are driving down the road. No, the flowers cannot drive down the road. So this is why I thought maybe we should do it in 2 weeks. I'm going to throw all that out there so you got the option. But remember, you don't have to do this whole paper this week. You could just do like the body part. And then I'm going to mention all of this again next week. Okay, all the introduction and conclusion, the ing and everything. But it gives you an option. And we will together learn the difference between our ings. Okay, you may go.
Okay, you should have had all